In the mysterious world of the Viking Age, filled with warriors, raiders, and kings, there was one man who stood apart. He was not a great warlord, nor a mighty ruler. Instead, he was a dreamer, an inventor, and an explorer. His name was Floki Vilgerðarson. History remembers him as a shipbuilder, a trickster, and the man who set his sails toward the unknown seas, becoming the first Norseman to intentionally discover Iceland. But who was Floki, truly? Was he a mad genius? A faithful servant of the gods? Or simply a man obsessed with discovery? His story is one of daring voyages, deep faith, and the thin line between brilliance and madness. To understand Floki, we must first step back into the Viking world. The Vikings were not just raiders, they were also farmers, traders, craftsmen, and explorers. At the heart of their success stood one invention above all: the longship. Sleek, fast, and able to navigate both the open sea and shallow rivers, the longship gave the Vikings unmatched power. Without these ships, the Viking Age would never have been possible. And it was men like Floki, master builders and visionaries, who made them real. Floki was born in Norway, sometime during the 9th century. We do not know much about his early life, but the sagas tell us he was already recognized as a skilled shipwright and sailor. Unlike many of his fellow Vikings, Floki's heart and mind were consumed by the old gods. He was a deeply religious man, offering sacrifices, reading signs, and trusting in visions. To some, he was pious. To others, he was strange, even mad, but his devotion would guide him toward destiny. News had reached Norway of a distant land across the seas. Earlier, sailors had glimpsed it by accident. Some spoke of grassy meadows, others of strange mountains and ice. Floki, filled with curiosity and faith, decided to see this land for himself. He built a ship, gathered his family and crew, and prepared for one of the most dangerous voyages of the Viking Age. Before leaving, Floki performed a sacred ritual. He carried with him 3 ravens, sacred to Odin, the Allfather. These birds would be his guides across the unknown sea. When his ship left the fjords of Norway and entered the vast ocean, Floki released the first raven. It circled and flew back toward Norway, a sign that land was far behind them. The second raven he released flew upward, then returned to the ship. But the third raven flew forward, never to return. Floki knew the bird had found land, and he steered his ship in its direction. After a long and perilous journey, battered by wind and waves, Floki and his companions sighted land. It was unlike anything they had seen before. Towering cliffs, black volcanic rock, steaming hot springs, and glaciers glistening under the sun. This was Iceland. Floki had reached the edge of the known world. At first, the land seemed full of promise. There were rivers filled with fish, valleys for grazing, and untouched wilderness waiting to be claimed. Floki and his people settled, building homes and preparing for life in this strange new place. But soon, the harsh truth revealed itself. The winters in Iceland were long, dark, and merciless. Crops withered, livestock starved, and many of Floki's companions perished. Legend tells us that Floki climbed a tall mountain to look over the land. From the peak, he saw nothing but ice and snow stretching across the valleys. It was then that he gave the land its grim name, Iceland, or Iceland. Disheartened and defeated, Floki eventually returned to Norway. When asked about the new land, his words were bitter. He spoke of suffering, hunger, and endless ice. Yet, despite his disappointment, other Vikings were intrigued. More voyages followed, and soon Iceland became one of the most important Viking settlements. It grew into a thriving society with chieftains, farmers, and poets. It even gave birth to the Icelandic sagas, some of the greatest literary treasures of the medieval world. Though Floki's attempt to settle Iceland had failed, his role as the first to intentionally sail there ensured his place in history. He had pushed the boundaries of the known world. His courage, or perhaps his madness, opened the door for countless others to follow. But who was Floki beyond the voyage? The sagas describe him as a complex man. He was not like other Vikings, driven by wealth or power. Instead, he was consumed by visions and faith. Some say he resembled the trickster god Loki, unpredictable and dangerous. Others believed he was touched by Odin himself, a man chosen to walk between this world and the world of the gods. In modern times, Floki's legend has been reimagined. The popular television series Vikings portrayed him as a close friend of Ragnar Lothbrok, a genius shipbuilder, and a man torn between loyalty and divine visions. While the series is not strictly historical, it captures the essence of Floki's spirit: eccentric, brilliant, and deeply devoted to the gods. His ships carried men to new lands. His faith gave him strength in the face of the unknown, and his discovery of Iceland shaped the future of Norse exploration. Without Floki's voyage, perhaps Iceland would have remained hidden for centuries longer. Floki's story reminds us of the fine line between genius and madness. To his people, he was both a visionary and a fool. To history, he is a symbol of Viking courage and exploration. His legacy is not written in battles or thrones, but in horizons crossed and new worlds revealed. In the end, Floki the Viking was more than just a shipbuilder or explorer. He was a man who dared to follow his faith across the seas. He was willing to risk everything for discovery, and though his journey ended in hardship, it gave rise to one of the most important Viking settlements in history. The tale of Floki endures because it speaks to something eternal: the human desire to venture into the unknown, to leave behind the safety of the shore and chase the promise of new lands, to trust in faith, even when reason fails. When we think of the Vikings gazing at the horizon, filled with courage and curiosity, we cannot help but see Floki among them, a man who followed the flight of a raven into history.